So it is a one-on-one consultation here.
Hey,
So,
I like it.
well, here's my question for you.
Yeah, right.
Have you used KDP directly?
Yes,
Okay.
Yes, I
So
have a whole
rather
page of
than
them.
running down
how to.
how to, because that's what I would have done if it had been anybody other than you and me.
Yeah.
And I think we're going to get one other person here, so I'll wait. I think this is a consultation rather than a workshop, because with two of you, I can actually speak specifically to any to what it is you want to know.
I had a question I put down on here.
Well, why don't you? First of all, have you used KDP directly? I'm sorry.
I wrestle
Thank you.
KDP.
I'm so glad you guys got a chance to actually.
Yes. We're both in the spiritual business.
You are, and so am I.
Very different.
And I'm in yet another one. So it
You're
is.
Joseph Campbell.
Yes.
You're Richard P. Goodwin. Okay.
I would put that under the general heading of New Age or spiritual, mind body spirit. Yeah. But have you used KDP directly?
No, we had no ebooks at all.
I know this because I'm doing them for you. So let me just do the quick rundown. Basically, Kindle Direct Publishing, which we talked about, is of all the major retailer self-publishing sites, probably the easiest to use. All of the rest of them have, have idiosyncrasies. I actually find, and I'm going to say this over and over again, the pronoun interface really smooth, easy. It asks you questions exactly as you. So, if you are wondering whether you want to take on doing KDP directly, consider possibly doing it just through pronoun.
Pronoun does include KDP.
Yes, they do.
Question.
They do Kindle, but you can't. The disadvantages of pronoun. You can't do KDP Select, so you can't do the exclusive program, obviously. And you can't market. You can't use the advertising program that I talked about, AMS. So, for instance, I've got titles I'd love to advertise. They're my titles, but because they're through pronoun or whatever, I can't advertise them. And
But do they show up like on your as other versions also available for your paperbacks?
Oh yeah. So, for instance, for the books I have on pronoun, I'm doing this for the Joseph Campbell Foundation. I'm using pronoun for them as well, and we just released a book. It's an ebook on Judeo-Christian tradition, and it. I didn't even have to do anything. It went up on pronoun, and as soon as it showed up on Amazon, it was already linked to the
What
print
did
book.
you submit to them in format?
EPUB. That's what I'm going to talk about in a minute. Ebooks are EPUB files at this point. Used to be there were a wide variety of formats. There was Microsoft Lit, there was Sony, there was all of these different, and even within individual companies they would have multiple formats. At this point, there really are only two, and that is an illusion. Okay, Amazon sells what they call Mobi files. Their Mobi files are made up of two files. One is an old file format called Mobi that works on old Kindles, that is based on the literal turn of the century 2000 Palm Pilot format. It's awful. And at this point, fewer and fewer Kindles are around that run it. The other one is called KF8, Kindle Format 8, and it is basically
Format
EPUB.
what?
KF8, Kindle Format 8.
Never heard of it.
Yeah, and KF8 is their version of EPUB. That's all it is. And what happens when you download an EPUB file when you download a Mobi file from Amazon, it's got both versions in it. It's a little Frankenstein monster. So they're big. But what is going to happen over time is that they're going to just drop the old ones and it'll just basically be the same. I'm hoping that they're just going to call it an EPUB file and have done with it, but Amazon doesn't like anybody being able to take their stuff and go anywhere else. So, but I can crack an EPUB. I can crack a Mobi file, take out the EPUB part of it, and use that. I've done that. But the point is that the basic format for ebooks at this point is EPUB. And EPUB, essentially, all an EPUB file is what I like to call a website in a box. Okay, it's a series of HTML files and media files, pictures, maybe sound, maybe video, but most often it's just, that maybe some script, but only if you really know what you're doing. And it is in a very specific format that is agreed on by a group called the Independent Digital Publishing Forum, IDPF. And they say this is the structure it needs to have, this is what it needs to look like. There are lots of ways of creating an EPUB file at this point. And I recommend when you upload an ebook anywhere, most retailers will allow you, including Amazon, will allow you to upload a Word file. If you can avoid it, don't, because the way that Microsoft Word handles images is awful. So you'll end up with a page where a picture that was a nice little inset takes up the entire width of the page, and another down the page where it's the same exact inset, and it's teeny, and sometimes it'll just be missing altogether.
That's why I wanted an individual person to create the EPUB files.
Which is, I'm happy to do. When you go in, whether you go through an aggregator like Pronoun or directly, you're going to go on, you're going to need to know all of the stuff that you need to know anyway. You know, if you've got an ISBN, title, author, publisher name, all of that good stuff. If you've thought about the BISAC categories and the keywords, you need those. And one of the nice things that I like about Pronoun as well is that they actually have all kinds of tools for finding the best categories and keywords.
Have you worked with keywords yet, Katie?
I'm going to be talking about keywords in the next rotation.
Oh, this isn't, you're not talking about categories?
I'm talking about KDP. I'm talking about Kindle Direct Publishing. You can also come back.
Yeah.
That's fine. And you will find good information no matter where.
Okay.
So I'm talking about
I came hoping
KDP
I
right
would
now.
get
Great, yeah.
something I didn't know. So far, I do all this stuff myself.
I got it.
You know, but he's got to talk
But
to
well,
you.
I'm sort of just covering the
Yeah,
basics.
you've got to do that.
You're going to need a good, well-formatted EPUB file, a good cover, and a good ebook cover is not necessarily the same as a good print cover, because remembering that an ebook cover will almost never be seen except at thumbnail size. So it needs to be very clean. It needs to be visually thought through in terms of small. You know, so a lot of beautiful print book covers where there's, all kinds of beautiful, subtle coloration and all this stuff. That was why I was so happy with my cover for Risico. It's a beautiful, subtle. I mean, he did some beautiful detail work in it, but at
It still
thumbnail
shows
size,
up.
you can see the title.
Yeah.
You can see that she's holding a sword.
Yeah.
We actually spent some work on that. So think
You have
about
to be able to see the title from across the room.
exactly. Think of it
on your regular book.
Think
in
of it,
order for it to be big enough.
when you're looking at the the JPEG or the Photoshop file, look at it when it's an inch wide, and see if you can see what the book is, what the title is. Does the cover communicate? Okay, at that size. This is not just KDP. This is any ebook. And then you need to think in terms of pricing, remembering that Amazon has multiple foreign outlets, and remembering that an ebook that would cost $9.99 here, if you tried to charge the Brazilian equivalent, no one will ever buy it because they can't afford it. So, it's nice to be able to price at a different price in India or Brazil or Mexico than you do in France and England.
And you can do that in KDP.
Yeah. You can do that on Pronoun as well. Just letting you know.
I saw your article in Design.
The book designer. Yeah.
I get that regularly. I mean, I get the post.
Oh, me too.
It's
a great website.
It's hard to keep up,
I agree. It's impossible. So, just to keep going on KDP and not to go down the pronoun
No, go. It's fine.
rabbit hole, because I
Yeah.
could talk about pronoun all half hour. What I guess, the thing that you need to think through also is if you want to give people a discount, they offer a discount. It's called Matchbook. If you have a print edition and an ebook edition, do you want a discount? Yeah, you do, because people are unlikely to buy both unless there is an incentive to buy both. So usually I either go free, because if you've already paid me, I want you to be happy. I want you to read all the different versions, and sometimes I'll do, it'll give you the option 99 cents, $1.99, $2.99. But those are basically I think those are the four options. And that's essentially, in terms of uploading a book, creating an account, that's KDP. It's really pretty straightforward. Questions. You had a question about KDP. What can I answer that you don't know?
Okay, so there's the wording on their screens seems to be towards the author. Okay, we're a small publisher.
Yeah,
I just
I'm a small
published
publisher.
3 of somebody else's stuff, not my husband's, which
Right.
is the normal.
I got
That's
it.
my husband's stuff. So now I've got a trilogy of nice historical fiction
Fabulous.
by another author, great stuff, good-looking covers, blah, blah, blah.
Beautiful, but
I was kind of scared off from putting his Kindle version up on our same page because they were asking these questions like book, and you're right.
But it is your book.
Right, it is.
And-
it's my ISBN.
And you have a contract with this person.
Yeah.
So you do own the license to it.
Yeah.
You have the rights. It is Kindle Direct Publishing is aimed at self-publishers.
Yeah.
But for those of us who are not self-publishers, yeah, they actually will get angry at you if you create a second account.
Okay.
They really don't like
Yeah.
that, because people have done that to get around all kinds of rules.
And I don't want to send the file to him and tell him to make his own account, because then I get nothing royalty.
Yes, you
from
don't
it
want to do
myself.
that. I understand.
Yeah,
And-
but I felt like, oh, gee, what if I do this? It feels funny when they're asking the questions the way they are.
That's what you want to do, is just do it through your own. Answer it. I mean, does your author have his own
He has his
Author
own-
Central account?
No, he doesn't have anything of his own.
Tell him to set up an
Except
Author
this-
Central account.
Okay.
Because then what we were talking about, when somebody finds the book, even before anybody has bought anything, it will show, find other books like this, and it will show the rest of the series. The other thing is, then when their name is highlighted, they click on it, you go to it, you'll see the whole series. And eventually, once the series is out, it will show up as a series. So even before the people who bought this also bought, there will be a row of series. So it will be one more way that people will now know, and they can buy the whole series with one click. I love that. Okay? So
that's
so do it. Just
Okay.
do it. But he needs to sign up for an Author Central account himself. If this is another thing you can do for him if you want, but you don't want, because then that becomes a pain. If he publishes through somebody else, then you end up having to manage his Author Central account.
Yeah, okay, great.
Understood?
Yes, thanks.
What about an author who has passed on?
See that again?
What about an author setting up an author page for an author who has passed on?
I maintain the Joseph Campbell author page. And I do that separately from, he's not, for a while I had it as a pen name for me. And then I realized that's a terrible idea because I work with the Campbell Foundation, but there will come a day when I don't. And I shouldn't be the one that's controlling this author page. So I contacted Author Central Help and said, hey, this is what's going on. I need to spin this off as a separate account. They said, no problem. And it was very seamless. I mean, it was really easy. You should do it today, but find an email at your organization where it goes to, not to a person, but to the organization. Okay. Make sense?
I have a similar question.
Sure.
So I have my own press. So I will, so that's an easy, I'll do. So I help the author with, so I have a title that I'm designing for the author and publishing through
Sure.
my press. So how do they'll just independently set up their
What they
author
need to
page?
do, and this is true for all of you, and you're going to need to let your author know this. When the person sets up their author page, it will say, are you the author of?
Yeah.
Goodreads will do the same. If it doesn't, and then you say, this is my book. Literally, there's a button underneath the book that says, this is my book.
Right.
If it doesn't, then what they need to do is search on their own name. And if it's not John Smith or Mary Jones or whatever, it will bring up titles. And it's a great thing about having a name like David Cutler. There is no other David Cutler. Nope.
Oh,
It's not a name outside the United States. Cutler is not a name. It was an Ellis Island name, and I'm the only David Cutler in the United States. So
I thought I had to look up an author just the other day, and I thought it would be the only person. Mumbi Karaoke.
well,
There were 15 of them just on LinkedIn.
I got it. It's the problem that, especially with non-Western names, you
Yeah.
don't know what's going to be common.
Right.
You really don't.
You don't even know the gender.
No.
That's right.
Yeah. I know that. I knew
Shakti,
the, I knew
Shakti
what the person
Patil.
looked
I
like.
had a Shakti Patil I was trying to find
Yeah.
once, and I went on
100.
LinkedIn, and it was there were hundreds.
Yeah.
It was like, oh, never
Oh
mind.
my.
I'm
Yeah.
not going to even try it.
Can I ask? I mean,
Please, KDP oriented or
yeah,
or
a technical. Okay.
Please.
Okay, so here you are. You're ready to put up a file.
Yes.
And it's going to become a Kindle. Do you like to actually make your own Kindle first and put it up? Do you
I'll
put
tell
up
you
an
why I don't.
EPUB up first?
I put up the EPUB, and you know why? Do you want to know what tool I use? It's called Kindle Gen, or I use
sure.
the Kindle Previewer, or I
Yes,
use
I use
Caliber. You know what all of those use? Kindle Gen, which is a
Same thing.
JavaScript. Okay, it's a Java
Okay.
program.
Yeah, I use Caliber.
Do you know what Amazon's site uses? Kindle Gen.
Kindle Gen,
It's
yeah.
the same damn
Same
thing.
thing.
So why spend 5 minutes of my time uploading it, converting it here?
Yeah. And then having Caliber write its stuff in
Oh
the metadata.
yeah, which drives me nuts.
Yeah.
I just upload it directly as an EPUB file,
Yes.
and then it's the same basic file. I make
How do you
change.
make your EPUB? InDesign?
Depends on how I'm starting the book.
Okay.
Okay, and we talked about this. InDesign is a great way to start because their conversion is pretty good at this point.
Yeah, I like it.
Not great. It's
better.
I still go through and clean things up because it'll do weird stuff.
And what do
typographically.
you use Caliber to do the cleanup like a?
I
instead of file
don't use
names for
Caliber
the
not
table
because right,
contents,
exactly.
You make a real
Right.
name.
What I use is Sigil
Yeah.
or Sigil.
Yes. I used
But
to.
essentially, it's the same thing. There are two what are called "what you see is what you get" WYSIWYG open source EPUB editing applications. There are a bunch of them out there that are very expensive that do the same thing, and those are Caliber, which has the advantage and disadvantage of being a library. It's an ebook. It's iTunes for ebooks, is the way I've described it to people. Okay, but it also has a number of really nice conversion tools. Okay, so you can convert your EPUB file to a Word doc, or convert your Word doc to an EPUB file. I've gone both ways. It's very nice. But I use, and it has a built-in editor.
Yeah.
The built-in editor is quite good. I like it. I've been working in Sigil so long that I prefer it.
Yeah.
Sigil at this point has a lot of the functionalities that I need built in, including it will do. This is something else that you need to
Three,
think about.
does it do 3 now?
Yeah, quite
Because
well.
it didn't used to
No,
do
that was
3,
one of the things drove
and
me
I
nuts.
hated it. I mean, it was
Well,
awful.
but honestly, until last year, there was no point in using EPUB
Yeah.
3. There are 2 versions of the EPUB file for 3, obviously. One nobody ever used. The one that most ebooks have been written in is called EPUB 2. It is wonderful, but there are some things that ebooks can do that it didn't do in terms of structuring
Interactive
of ebooks that it could do. I mean, metadata, all kinds of nice stuff, handling of images, handling of video and audio, creating fixed format ebooks. Okay? You couldn't really do that in EPUB 2. You could, it was awful. EPUB 3 allows for a much more sophisticated design experience. Until last year, Nook didn't accept EPUB 3s, and Kindle usually wouldn't accept them. They'd accept them sometimes, but then their implementation was bad, and often it would just reject it, say, I don't know what that means. Don't do that. So now everybody accepts EPUB 3, and at that point, and Sigil, which is what I use to edit ebooks, it works natively in EPUB 3, which it didn't used to. And so I use that. I use that all the time. And I mean, I like the extensibility of Sigil. Calibre has some plugins as well.
Yeah.
But because it's an application that does all these different things, it's a library, it's a place you can buy. You can actually buy directly from inside Calibre. It converts, it edits. A lot of the stuff that's there I don't need, and a lot of the stuff that I do need, it's hard for me to find. Sigil, it's bare bones, it's not fancy, it's not aimed at consumers, it's totally aimed at people who are creating ebooks. That's all it does. But there are plugins like, doc file import, Word doc import, EPUB 3 export. If you've got an EPUB 2 file, you can export it as EPUB 3. It's called the EPUB 3izer.
Oh, in Sigil?
Like
an add-on for Sigil?
Yeah. Plugins. You can add one that exports as a Mobi file. It's Kindle Gen yet again.
Yeah.
Same thing. I just like not having to do that because you have to update the Kindle Gen constantly, because they're constantly tweaking it to make it better. Why do that when you can just upload it?
I couldn't get my Mac to even open it after a while.
Yeah, it gets cranky. But if you're talking the
Kindle Gen,
previewer, the Kindle previewer.
Yeah, I couldn't even get it to open.
They created a new one. Get
Just for
Kindle
Mac?
Previewer 3. Yeah. Because at this point it is better, and occasionally when I'm having trouble uploading an EPUB file, which happens at this point almost never, but occasionally I'm able to just drop it into Previewer, and the Previewer will do the conversion, or better, it will tell me where the error is. One other thing, and then I'll take a question. EPUB has what's called validation. In order to upload an ebook to any of the retailers, you need to pass what's called EPUB check validation. You can download it as a JavaScript, or if your ebook is not too big, you can simply go to, and if you want to write this down, it's called validator.idpf.org, and you upload your file, and I've had people call me and say, I'm worried they're going to steal my ebook. No, they're not going to steal your ebook. Macmillan uses this. Penguin uses
I've
this.
had them
Please
say no problems.
wait.
And then
each of the
another-
retailers has their own version of it, and I've actually had times when I've gone and said, I know you're saying that this doesn't clear EPUB check. Here's the results of EPUB check, which is,
Right.
Congratulations, you're all clear.
Yeah.
And they're like, that's
I've said
interesting.
that same thing to them.
You need to talk
You mean in like Ingram, Spark?
Ingram. I had to go through that with one of the first books I did through Pronoun.
Yeah.
It kept saying, no, I can't, no, EPUB, it fails EPUB check. And I'm like, no, it doesn't actually.
Yeah.
And they finally said, and it took them a while. Their service is terrific. But they were finally able to say, this is where it's flagging it. And I said, yes, but that's not actually a problem. I mean, it says that I was missing a navigation document link. That
Or
it was
the
linking
date-
to something
the
it wasn't.
date's wrong because you put your date in caliber.
Whatever.
The date format's wrong.
Yeah, I know. Anyway, so, but if once you validate it, 99 times out of 100, it will upload anywhere you want it to go. Now, we could talk about different formatting for Kindle than for the others, but don't worry about it. It's not worth your trouble. Question?
Well, I came in when you were talking about if someone buys your print book, offer them
Yes, Matchbook is what it's called.
ebook. And as the author, do you decide on the price, or does Amazon do that?
You decide on the price. You can set a price free, which is what I often do, because if they've already bought my book, I want to reward them for having bought my book. Okay? Or you can say 99 cents or $1.99 or $2.99. It has to be a 99 cents, and I don't think they allow more than $2.99. But it puts you in a position where you are able to compete with the big publishers who have these bundles that they offer. They say, buy them. And if you use ACX, the audiobook, they'll bundle those as well. Which, if you're a narrator and you're getting royalty share, really sucks because you sell a 1995 audiobook for $1.95, and you get 20% of that, and it's like,
Yeah, that's why Judy wants them to be paid up front.
yeah. Honestly, as a narrator, I don't do royalty share anymore. I mean, I don't do a huge amount of audiobooks either because they're very work intensive, but I do produce some of my own. I mean, I'm
Yeah, as a publisher though, if you got to pay for that time after
yeah.
do our
I'll
own.
tell you, I know what yes, if you're in a position to do your own, do your own.
Well, nonfiction, because
Right.
there's no action, there's no multiple characters.
It's not even that. There are good narrators out there for anything. But if you can find somebody willing to do royalty share that's good, do royalty share. The other thing, and this is something that ACX will never tell you, is if you've got a really, I did this last year with a wonderful narrator, and she said, I really love the book, I'd really love to do the book, I can't afford to do straight royalty share. And I said, well, what if I paid you $100 per finished hour? On top of it, you'll get the royalty share. ACX, Audible will send you 50% of all of the 40%,
Yeah.
the 40% royalty share, and I'll pay you $100 for every finished hour on top. And it's done very well. I made money back. Okay.
We could stay here.
Just a quick question. So how do I